An update on the global economic situation with Yves Zlotowski. Welcome.
Hello.
You are the chief economist of Coface. How do you consider the U.S. risk with the upcoming elections?
You know, compared to European performances, I would say that the U.S. growth is quite decent at around 2%. Compared to previous performances of the U.S. economy, it's a bit disappointing. Now, clearly, the U.S. growth has lost momentum because part of this huge growth that the U.S. experienced was linked to the debt, to the consumer debt. And now, of course, the U.S. consumer has to deleverage, and that clearly weighs very much on the activity. Now, we are a credit insurer, and you know that we are mostly interested in corporates. And I think that corporates are really the strong point of the U.S. economy. They are highly profitable. The debt is rather low. So, and it translates into a very good payment experience since the last 2 years. Clearly, we have very few non-payments from the U.S. corporates. Now, I would say that the U.S. risk has stopped improving in a way. What we see first is that we see a certain level of bankruptcy. Bankruptcy have decreased for the last 3 years, it's true, but they remain at a high level and at a much higher level than before the crisis. And secondly, we see in surveys, especially for SMEs, you know that SMEs are a very large part of the US economy, 50% of employment, 50% of GDP. We see that they are worried about the political outlook. And I think it's linked to, of course, the debate of the fiscal cliff, but I believe that the fiscal cliff issue will be resolved one way or another because you know that US politics have always shown a lot of pragmatism. But I think there is a larger problem, which is the question of the fiscal policy. I think that the new president will have to tackle the issue of the public debt, which is very high. So it's clearly, to me, the fact that whoever is the next US president, they will have a less supportive fiscal policy, meaning perhaps less growth. And I think that we will see in 2013 maybe growth at around 1.5, 1.7 instead of the 2% we expect for the whole year.
Is the slowdown we're currently seeing in emerging markets dangerous?
Well, clearly emerging markets do decelerate, that's true, and now the growth is clearly half it was like 2 years ago. But there are different cases. The first typical case is the effect of the European crisis and the effect of the contraction of activity in Europe. So mostly for emerging Europe, for Eastern Europe, we see the case of Czech Republic, a small open economies who clearly suffer from the contraction of European demand. You also have the case of these large economies who were in overeating situation 2 years or 1 year ago, and now clearly decrease because after overeating you have to decrease your level of growth. Clearly it's the case of Turkey or the case of Brazil. But if you take these two economies, I don't think the news are so bad because if you look at the level of growth they are now in the low side of the cycle, Brazil is around 2%. When it used to decelerate, it was around 0% in the past. When you look at Turkey, today is 3%. It used to, in the low cycle, it was at -5%. So clearly now they are able to manage a kind of soft landing, which is good news. I believe that in the second half of the year, we will see growth not decelerate further, even maybe accelerate a bit because a lot of emerging markets policymakers have implemented supportive budget policy or supportive monetary policy, and we will see the effect. And even more in 2013, where we will see growth between 4 and 5%, but maybe around 5%, which is a rather good number these days. So yes, it's a deceleration, but I would say it's a handled deceleration in a way.
Yves Zlotowski, chief economist, Coface, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian.